Hello everybody, welcome to linuxhint.com YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about 20 most important computer science interview questions, okay? So the most of the time when you have your bachelor's degree in computer science and you go for a job, they're going to ask you these general questions, and obviously they're going to ask you about yourself, and you can ask them about the company as well. So they are going to ask you general questions about computer science, and obviously they're gonna ask you that which programming language that you have a grip on, and then they're going to ask you questions about specifically about that programming language as well. Okay, so here we have general questions that you could be asked, and obviously you're a computer science graduate, so you have to know the answers to these questions. Okay, so without a further ado, let's start. So first of all, the first question is, what is a class? So the idea is that a class is a blueprint from which objects are created, and a class basically contains methods and variables associated with an instance of a class. Okay, so in Java you have classes, if you're familiar with Java, and you can basically create the objects from the class, and then you can basically call those objects rather than basically using the whole code in the class. Okay, so that was a concept of a class. Now let's move on to the next question, which is, what is a file? So the idea is that a file is a named location where you store data or information permanently. Okay, so a file is always stored inside a storage device using basically any sort of file name and extension. Okay, so usually the .text extension is for text files, and other sort of files have other sort of extensions as well, and name could be anything. Okay, so a file name normally has primary and secondary names separated by a dot. Okay, so yeah, that's it for a file. That was pretty easy, right? So let's say we have a class named as XYZ. All right, so this is a class and there is some code inside of that. So now let's move on to question number 3, which is, what is an object? So the idea is that an object is an instance of a class. Instance mean it is a copy of a class. So for example, and now let's say that we want to create a copy of this class and we want to use it. How would you do that? You would basically do nothing, but you would just call it. Okay, so first let's say this is XYZ. You create an object, and then you basically have here new XYZ. Okay, this is a constructor basically that you're calling. So this is basically the creation of the new object. So now you can basically, this is obj, which is an instance of XYZ class, and now you can basically use it anywhere actually to call on this XYZ class. Okay, so I hope you've got the point. So now let's move on to the next question, which is question number 4 essentially, and that is, what is a constructor? So the idea is that a constructor basically, it is a method which is used to create an object of the class, and they are basically, we have two types of constructor. One is a default constructor, and the other one is a parameterized constructor in which you have different parameters. Okay, so the default constructor is the constructor which you can have, which would automatically be created even if you don't create it manually. While if you talk about the parameterized constructor, you have to create it manually. All right. Okay, let's move on to question number 5, which is, what is inheritance? Okay, so the idea is that inheritance is a property in which the property of a parent class, which is also known as superclass, is passed on to the child class, which is also called as subclass. Okay, so we have a brief video on inheritance in the Java interview question, in which we have explained in detail the inheritance, the abstraction, the polymorphism. Okay, we have done code related example in Java. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put the link in the description to that video so that you can go ahead and you can watch that video. Okay, and what else I'm going to do is that I'm going to put the link to all the computer science related videos which are like related to interviews specifically. For example, the C interview questions, the C string interview question, the Python interview questions, and the Java interview questions. also the bash interview questions as well. So what I'm going to do that I'm going to put all the links of those videos in the description, and half of the questions would be answered in that video. Okay, so right now I have just explained to you that what inheritance is. You can for code example and for a better understanding, you can go to that video and you can watch it. Okay, so the link is in the description. Okay, so make sure you click on the link, you watch that Java video for a better understanding of inheritance. Okay, so let me explain to you another way. That let's say that this is a parent class. Okay, animal is a parent class. Okay, so if you talk about that dog is an animal, right? So the idea is that the general traits of animal, they are gonna be same, like 4 legs, teeth, ears, 2 eyes, so things like that. Okay, so this is a generalized class, animal. And when we say dog, it's going to be like little more specific, like the dog barks, okay, and the dog has a round tail or something like that, and you know, things like that. And if you want to be more specific, you can have another animal like snake, like a lion. Okay, so the traits of those animals are gonna be like, you know, specialized. Okay, so in animal class, they are general, like 4 legs, 1 tail, 2 eyes, 2 ears, while in the named class of that specific animal, you're going to specify. And what you're going to do is that when you're creating the dog class, you don't need to write all the code of the animal class again. Rather, you just basically inherit this class, you use the data, or you use the code from this class inside this specific class, and you basically you know, do the work that you want to do, right? So the video, so go ahead and watch that video. In that we have explained in detail with the code example, so you would understand that better. So let's move on to the next question, which is OOP can do what? In short, the question is that what are the features of OOP? Okay, so the idea is that basic OOP features, they are like encapsulation, abstraction, and inheritance, and polymorphism. Okay, so I have explained to you inheritance as well, but if you want the explanation of encapsulation, abstraction, and polymorphism, then go ahead, watch the video that I've referred to. Link is in the description. Okay, we have question number 7. What is polymorphism? So polymorphism is the ability of an object to take on multiple forms. Okay, most commonly polymorphism is used in object-oriented programming when a parent class reference is used to refer to a child class object. Okay, so just go ahead, watch the video. You'd get a better idea. Move on to the next question, which is question number 8. Difference between method and constructor. So as I've told you earlier, that constructor is basically, there are of 2 types, parameterized and default constructor, and we use constructor to initialize the instance or the object of the class. Okay, so the method, if you talk about, on the other hand, it is used to perform some sort of operation. Okay, so methods are also called as functions as well. And if we talk about constructor never have the return value, and in case of function or method, they can have a return value. Okay, so in some of the cases, methods and functions don't have any return value, but they can. While if you talk about constructors, they can never have a return value. Okay, move on to the next question, which is question number 9. What is an abstract class? So the idea is that the abstract classes, they are the classes that contain one or more abstract methods. So if you talk about what is an abstract method, then the abstract method is a method that is declared but not yet implemented. Okay, so the idea is that you can say that what is the use of the abstract classes. Then the abstract keyword is used to create an abstract class and method. Okay, so abstract class in Java, it can be instantiated. Okay, an abstract class is mostly used to provide a base for subclass to extend and implement the abstract methods and override or use the implemented methods in the abstract class. Okay, so I hope you've got an idea. So let's move on to the next question, which is question number 10. What is multiple inheritance and what are its advantages and disadvantages? So if you talk about multiple inheritance, it is the process where you use a subclass and it can be derived from more than one superclass. So the advantage of multiple inheritance, you can say, is that a class can inherit the functionality of more than one base class, okay? But its disadvantage is that it can lead to a lot of confusion when two base classes implement a method with the same names, okay? So the disadvantage is the confusion because of the multiple inheritance, and the advantage is that a class would be able to inherit the functionality of more than one classes. Okay, let's move on to the next question, which is question number 11. What are some advantages of using Python over other programming languages? So the idea is that Python has a wide variety of advantages over other programming languages, and one of them is that syntax, right? The syntax of Python is very easy and you can learn it, very quickly. It is very easy to understand, and yeah, that is the first advantage that would I would say. So the first advantage I would say is easy. Let me just make it a little bit smaller. So the first advantage is that easy syntax, okay? The second advantage is that it has clean object-oriented design and features. It has a strong integration processing capabilities, okay? So would write here clean OOP design. Okay, this is the second advantage. And the third advantage would be that it has an extensive support libraries that drastically decrease time spent on coding, which in turn increases productivity. Okay, so we can say more libraries means more productivity. Okay, so that means that you don't have to write the code over and over again. Okay, last but not the least, it is that it has a large standard libraries containing all areas like operating system interfaces, web service tools, and string operation. I think that basically we can cover it inside here, the third advantage. Okay, so these are the three main advantages of using Python over other programming languages. Okay, so the next thing is, what is an array? Okay, so the next question is, what is an array? So the answer to that question is very simple, but if you're a computer science student, you're gonna be asked a question about an array. Okay, so the array, you can say, is a container which basically holds a fixed number of similar data types. Okay, so in array you're going to have a data of a same data type. Okay, for example, integer, string, or float. Okay, so you cannot have the string data inside the integer array, or vice versa. Okay, so what is the difference between overloading and overriding? So the answer to that question would be that overloading is when two or more methods in the same class have the same method name but different parameters. Okay, so while overriding is when two methods having the same method name and parameters, but one of the method is in the parent class and the other one is in the child class. Okay, so that is the difference between overloading and overriding. I hope you would remember this. So there is nothing to remember, I guess. It is very easy to understand, so I'm just gonna write here same class but different parameters. Okay, that is basically overloading. Okay, and different class but same name and same parameters. Okay, so that would be overriding. Okay, here same class but different parameter, same name as well. Okay, so this is overloading and this is overriding. Hope you've got the point. So now let's move on to the next question, which is question number 14, difference between class and interface. Okay, so the idea is that interface, it cannot be instantiated while a class can be instantiated until and unless that is not an abstract class. Okay, and the second thing that I would say, that an interface, it doesn't have any constructors while the class have instructors. And interface, they only have abstract methods, and obviously some of the classes also have abstract methods, but these are the classes that cannot be instantiated. Okay, so a class, basically it implements an interface and extends a class. Okay, while an interface cannot implement a class. An interface, it can extend multiple interfaces. All right, so these were the differences between class and interface. On to the next question, which is what is the software testing? Okay, so if you have a computer science degree, most probably you have read a subject called as software engineering, or maybe software engineering 1 and software engineering 2. Okay, so you might be familiar with testing. So the question is that what's the software testing, or what is the software testing? So how would you answer that? So the idea is that when you basically write a code or when you write a software, there are chances that these software or that code is specifically, it's going to have some sort of bugs and errors. Okay, so the process that is basically used to find those bugs and error, that process is specifically it is known as software testing. Okay, so when someone would ask you what's the software testing, you simply go and you say finding out bugs and errors. That process is called as software testing. Okay, so there are other types of software testing as well, regarding which you can be asked the question. So the other type is what is acceptance testing. Okay, so the testing that is conducted to enable a customer or a user to determine whether to accept a software or not. Okay, so the user himself comes, he tries the software, and he would tell you if the user accepts the software or not. Okay, so that's called as acceptance testing. Normally it is performed to validate the software that meets a set of agreed acceptance criteria. Okay, so now let's move on to the next question, which is what is accessibility testing? Okay, so the idea is that when you basically verify a product, if that is accessible to the people having like disabilities, like if the person is deaf, blind, or mentally disabled, in case of that, you verify that it is very easy to understand, or that software product is it is accessible and it is understandable to the people who have different sort of abnormalities. Okay, so that brings me to the next question number 18, that says what is ad hoc testing? So a testing phase where the tester tries to break the system by randomly trying the system's functionality, and as the name suggests, ad hoc, it is not permanent. All right, so here we come to our second last question, which is what is an API? So the API stands for application programming interface. It is a formalized set of software calls and routines that can be referenced by an application program in order to access supporting system or network services easily. Okay, So the idea is that if you're trying to create a new application, and there are some sort of features that you don't want to write the code of, there would be a lot of things that are available in the market. Like if you're familiar with the Firebase, if you're an Android developer, the Firebase has their own API, and basically the developer is not going to create his own database. What he's gonna do, he's gonna reference that Firebase using API. And API stands for Application Programming Interface, which means that you don't have to write or create a new software from scratch. You just reference that software which is already there in the market, and you use it to extend your code or your work. Okay, I hope you have got the point. Okay, last but not least, this is question number 20, and this is very important. What is computer science? Okay, so occasionally people don't consider these simple things, but sometimes the interviewer could ask you this question, that what is computer science? Okay, so in that case, what you're gonna do, that you're gonna say simply that computer science is the study of the principle and the use of the computer. Okay, this is a definition by Oxford if you want to be really specific. So the computer science is the study of both computer and hardware and software design. Okay, it encompasses both the study of theoretical algorithms and the practical problems involved in implementing them through computer hardware and software. So sometimes people think that computer science is only related to software. That is not true. It includes hardware and software both. And if you are familiar with other fields, then you might have noticed that in every field you have the extension of computer science, or you have the involvement of computer science, such as medical sciences, electrical engineering, civil engineering. Computer science is involved everywhere. Okay, so I hope you have got the point. You have learned something new today. If you have liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any more questions, or if you want to add any question, do so in the comments below. Give us your feedback. It's really important. We take it very seriously, and according to that we make changes in our videos. For written articles, you can always visit our website linuxin.com. Thank you so much for watching.